Well, from the desert sand to the frozen tundra, our Canadian Armed Forces has seen one extreme to the other when defending our country. And well, from lectures in a classroom to actual training in the field, there is a lot to take in. In a Newcap News exclusive, our cameras were invited to the biggest training exercise for reservists in the 41 Canadian Brigade group at CFB Wainwright, as troops prepare to go into simulated battle. Here now is part one of our three-part series.
Tent after tent, truck after truck. The 41 Canadian Brigade Group sets up its headquarters in a field about 25 minutes south of CFB Wainwright. One of these tents is the command suite. That's where the briefing takes place. Major John Vintar providing the commander and others insight into the exercise.
A 25 vehicle convoy moved along Diamond Route past the area, at which point we had discovered that the enemy was holding Padlow Bridge.
Major Vintar is discussing strategies for Exercise Belligerent Grizzly. Soldiers will attack a mock village to rid insurgents who have taken over.
This is the confirmation of it. This is the thing that they've been training for all the time. So it's a tactical scenario that uses all the skills they've acquired either at training courses or training with their units throughout the year.
Major Vintar signed up as a reservist in 1981. It was his way to give back to the country that welcomed his father, who immigrated back in the 30s from then Yugoslavia. The major served tours in Bosnia and Sudan. He explains what a reservist does.
We are part-time soldiers. I'm a reservist as well, even though I work full-time. But for most of these people, they have family, career, and they still take the time out to serve one night a week, one weekend a month, sometimes more, volunteering for operations, most recently in Afghanistan or in small missions around the world. It's the citizen soldier of Canada.
We came off a kick-ass attack yesterday. The guys have been driving it really hard, so it's been a good X for us.
Major Andrew Beauchamp is the company commander for the exercise. He develops the plan of attack, issues the orders, and oversees the operation.
It's a systematic process where you review the situation, so what's going on with the enemy, and how you can employ your friendly forces, or how you can use your team to encounter that enemy. So through that thought process is how you determine where you're going to lay out your forces, what resources, what additional resources you're going to need to face that threat, and from that process you come up with your scheme of maneuver, so how you're going to deploy and how you'll move through the battle.
There are approximately 300 soldiers from 9 different reserve units across Alberta, including dozens from the United States Army National Guard troops. Now, after months of training, both in the classroom and on the field, Exercise Belligerent Grizzly is a big deal for them. This is where they put their skills to the test.
3, 2, 1. Right outside the gate. Door check left. Door check. 3, 2, 1. Door clear. Door clear. Room clear. Room clear.
Dozens of American soldiers are taking part in the exercise. Their light-colored camo not exactly blending in with the Canadian green, but their fight is just as united.
They've loved this opportunity to do this. We aren't really able to train in these engineer tasks enough a lot. So the chance to come out here to a new environment and train with different cultures and just really get to see this engineer tasks, it's really exciting for them, especially just to have this type of scenario and experience.
So for now, the practice rates continue in preparation for the final assault.
In part 2 of our exclusive look behind Exercise Belligerent Grizzly, we take a look at the artillery training. Canadian Armed Forces reservist units in Alberta prepare for war in many ways. While they can only be deployed overseas by volunteering, all reservists get trained for battle. Now, in part 2 of our 3-part exclusive series, we take a look at artillery training for the Exercise Belligerent Grizzly, a task that will prepare them for a mock attack.
Outgoing. Fire.
Number 1, fire!
Shots fill the blue sky over this field located south of CFB Wainwright. Reservists are spending the early part of the afternoon working with artillery as they prepare to go into mock battle. Belligerent Grizzly will force soldiers to utilize everything they've learned from theory to combat training.
Fire!
Captain Robert Meehan is with the 20th Independent Field Battery, stationed with the Royal Canadian Artillery. He gives us a tour of the area. Here, we need to be equipped with helmets, protective eyewear, and earplugs, as soldiers are working with live fire.
If we should come under attack with artillery, you'll hear the rounds come in, and when that happens, the first thing you do is you drop down as low as you can. If there's a hole there, that's even better, so it's not a bad place to go.
A quick lesson on safety before the captain explains what is happening here.
We're practicing basically supporting the infantry elements as they proceed onto their target. So right now we're conducting a fire mission where the infantry are preparing to advance on the target. We're softening up to allow them a better chance of achieving their objective with the minimum casualties.
For this exercise, he's the gun position officer, a tough gig ensuring the safety of everyone involved.
When mistakes happen, people get hurt, so we can't allow it to happen. So that we make sure to minimize that risk by having double checks and by being really strenuous in our procedure. So we have very set procedure and a very specific way of doing things, and when we follow those rules, accidents just don't happen.
We head into the gun platform, tucked away behind camouflage netting. It's tough work getting these up.
The hole is mostly pre-dug by a backhoe, and it still took us about 6 to 8 hours to set up just this gun platform. They dig the hole, but it still needs to be perfected and smoothed out and all that jazz. We have to fill the sandbags up on the side. The hole goes to about here, give or take. So the sandbags go up the rest of the way.
A major detail of the gun platform is the ammo pit. Now it's the key to making sure their shots hit their targets.
So if it's a consistent temperature, then we know we can predict more accurately where the bombs will go. If we can't predict that, if we just leave the ammo outside in the hot sun, the bottom ammo will be cooler, the top ammo will be hotter, and then we're going to get a direct difference. And if we're shooting at our max range of close to 12 kilometers, if we're in that range there, those little variations make a huge difference. And then the guy calling in the fire can't be sure if it's really going to land on him or if it's going to land on friendlies or enemies.
And this ammo belongs to this beast, a C3 howitzer. This powerful piece of equipment is designed to take out the enemy from a distance. After getting coordinates from the command post, the gunners position the gun. After a quick lesson, the soldiers allow me the chance to fire the C3 howitzer.
Fire! Open that breech with your left hand. Perfect.
But after a long morning, it's time to replenish the reservists' appetites. Out come the meal bags, which are far from any culinary masterpiece, but they get the job done. As for dessert, that will come in the form of a mock attack later in the afternoon.
And tomorrow in our third and final part, the reservists reach enemy territory as a mock attack begins. Earlier this year in March, the Canadian military ended its 12-year mission in Afghanistan. And while our troops may not be engaging in a ground assault anytime soon, the men and women in uniform are always on guard. The Canadian Armed Forces employ the Train as You Fight motto to prepare them for any scenario. In our final installment of our exclusive look at Exercise Belligerent Grizzly, we head to the actual mock attack as soldiers look to liberate a town taken over by the enemy.
War is not pretty, but through this battlefield there is beauty and a calm before the storm. We are now on the doorstep of enemy territory. Insurgents have taken over this town. It's up to the Canadian Armed Forces to take it back. But the enemy won't go down without a fight.
Once they arrive, we'll engage them as best we can and hopefully give them some good training.
Lieutenant Tyler Yee has been trained as an enemy fighter for the last year and a half. Sounds odd, but there is reason for it.
It's much more realistic, and that's part of the Army's philosophy is train as you fight. So if you can actually have people out doing the bad guy role, it really helps the commanders and stuff, practice their command skills against a living, thinking enemy.
The soldiers are all equipped with special weapons effects simulation gear. Lieutenant Yee explains how it works.
On the vest is a modified tac vest that's similar to what normal Canadian soldiers wear. You'll see on here that there's a whole bunch of small black sensors. Those are attached to the small arms transmitter that's attached to the end of every rifle. And basically when you fire a round in your rifle, discharges a laser out, and if it gets picked up by a vest, you'll be notified by your vest whether or not you've been hit or killed, or if you have a near-miss situation, something like that.
The enemy is staked out in almost every corner, waiting for the Canadian Armed Forces to make the first move.
So it's a bit of a game. So the enemy is trying to divert them into areas that they want them to come at them from, which they would call a killing zone, where they have all their weapons ready to take them out. And our infantry want to come in and overcome that.
And off in the distance, in the thick brush, soldiers prepare to go on the offensive. Here we're about to see our first casualties. A suicide bomber emerges from the building. These soldiers have paid for freedom with their lives, but the attack must go on. The infantry moves in while taking their enemies out. Among the chaos, a lone rebel emerges. Arms in the air, he's surrendering.
Get out there! Sam, get on your knees!
The battle is a long one, stretching well over a couple of hours. Some of the soldiers make it out unscathed, others are nursing injuries, and will some pay the ultimate price.
For me, it's not essentially I was more worried about my life more than the men around to my left and right and front. Honestly, I'd prefer their lives over mine, so if I'm willing to give up my life just so they could accomplish the mission, then it was all worth it.
Specialist Jonathan Sadhu is an American soldier who has been on the front lines before.
Being actually deployed in Afghanistan, it's very, very similar to a lot of the combat engagements we have actually been through ourselves, and they've made it as close to realistic as possible.
This field serves as an impromptu hospital. Medics scramble from one injury to the other.
Yeah, we've got some great troops that provided security for us, so at no time did we have to worry about that sort of stuff. They literally laid down their lives to protect us, so we try to return the favor and take care of them back at the CCP.
Now that the war is over, the troops can relax and take a breather. But it's not long before they go over the exercise to see what went right and what went wrong. Belligerent Grizzly is now in the books. It's quite eye-opening to see what exactly our Canadian troops go through when they put their lives on the line in the name of freedom.
And the Canadian Armed Forces are always looking for more men and women to join their team. For more information or to talk to a recruiter, head to forces.ca or call 1-800-856-8488.